y'all, it's Laura, and I am back with a 2-photo layout. Now these photos do look like they are more or less the same photo, but they're not. They're just very similar. They were taken right after I had gotten done voting in November, and I was really excited to have a little sticker that said I voted because my kids have been learning about voting in school, and they were learning just how important it was to make your voice heard. And so I wanted to document that I did vote and that it is important to me to vote. And I also wanted to kind of add in a couple of thoughts about how important it seems to be to my kids that I vote, because they had really made sure that I got a sticker so I could prove that I voted. That was very important to them. They wanted proof that I had voted too. So I am using my stash kit, which is based mostly on Chamel's Little by Little, but for this particular layout, I was choosing papers and embellishments that leaned more toward the My Mind's Eye Well Hello side of my kit, and it's a little different in style. It has a much bolder feel to it. It has big graphic flowers, and it's not quite as aimed towards the little ones like Chamel's line is. But I thought that this bold blue matched really well to the shirt that I was wearing in the photo, and that it would really be a nice statement piece in my album. And I do think about that while I'm scrapbooking. I don't necessarily worry about, okay, this one, this layout, number 12, is going to be the statement piece in my album. And I don't worry about it quite that much, but I do try to have a mix of subtle layouts and bold layouts, and recognize when I'm working through an album that maybe I've done a lot of subtle layouts lately. I do have a preference overall for subtle layouts, but once in a while I like to have that bold pop of color that really grabs your attention and kind of begs you to listen. It grabs your attention. It says, oh, are you really looking through this album? Are you getting all of the stories? So what I've got going on here is I've done one block of layering behind my larger photo, and then I have these 3 strips of banners. And I had initially thought that I was going to do them kind of coming down from the top, and then my 2 photos would just sort of, just lead off of that. But after a little while, I realized that I really didn't love the way that my smaller photo was just kind of hanging out in space. It didn't really seem to have an intended place to be, and that was irritating me. Just slightly. So I decided to go ahead and take them horizontal. That way I did have a little ledge there for both of my photos, and they both felt like they belonged on the page. I am going to use a little bit of the Little by Little paper on this layout as well. One is to mat the tiny photo and just kind of bring it to the forefront. In the smaller photo, I am pointing to the sticker that says I voted, and so it's kind of just to indicate there was more to the photo. The larger photo has a little bit more detail than you think. It's asking you to look at the sticker. And I really thought this layout, I will say that the one thing on this layout that kind of threw me a little bit was the orange florals in the background, and I wasn't exactly sure how I was going to incorporate those. Orange is not one of my favorite colors, but I do like the way that it looks with blue. It's just a great color to balance out the blueness in the background. It just gives a nice little pop of bright color, and it lightens it up. Now, in this particular layout, I did not do my characteristic absence of color. I actually went with the photos, and the reason I did that is because I was using really bold kit. if I was scrapping just from my stash, I probably would have pulled in fairly subtle colors, a lot of neutrals and things, and I would have let that pop of blue from my shirt be something that drew your eye into the photo. But because I have two photos here, I don't really have to do that. Already your eye is going to be drawn in. I've added these little chevrons at the top and at the side to, again, draw your eye into the photos. It's really not necessary for me to avoid a color in this case. I am using a lot of pretty little studio pieces on this page. These little banners were really cute. They had some great sayings on them, and they were very easy to include. And though it may be hard to see, there is a little bit of kind of teal floral in that background as well. I wanted to bring some of that to the forefront. I didn't want all of that fading into the background just because it's not quite as bright teal as is in these little banner pieces, but I thought it would tie them in a little bit better. Now, one of the things with this layout in particular, because I chose to do something fairly minimalist in design, there's not a lot going on in the background. There's no cut file, there's no mixed media, there's just this one panel behind my photo and these three banners. It's a very minimal design. I'm having to get a little fussy with the details. And while I don't mind getting fussy with the details, I really enjoy adding the details onto my layout. I don't think that I had realized it at the time that it was going to be a fussy layout. And it did actually turn out to be very fussy. But I did grab these stickers and added some of those around the page as well. I'm trying to create some balance with these because I don't have very many florals on this sticker sheet, and I want to use them wisely. So I am cutting them in half and tucking some of them behind photos. I'm going to create a cluster at the center left. I'm going to create a cluster at the bottom middle and the top middle. So I'm going to have a triangle of florals there, but there's a lot of triangles going on here, really. I mean, if you look at the chevrons, they're in two places and they balance out the banners at the bottom left, and there's going to be a lot of that. A lot of movement on this page and a lot of bold color on this page, and that's a bit of an experiment on my part. Sometimes I like simple pages, sometimes I like busy pages, but they always have a lot of detail. And so just because I've chosen bold colors doesn't mean I'm not going to use a lot of detail. It just means that I'm going to be a little bit more fussy about what details I add on. So I have this little journaling spot here that was from the ephemera pack of the Little by Little collection, and it doesn't quite 100% fit, but I liked that. For some reason, when I was making the layout, I really liked that it stood out just a little, and it was something different on the page. Everything else on the page is very geometric, and I'm adding a couple of florals, but a lot of it's very geometric and simple patterns. And I wanted something that kind of stood out just a little bit. And for some reason, this little journaling spot seems to, with that green. So I love its placement. I'm going to add in my journaling off camera because I was trying to keep this video to an appropriate length. This layout actually took me a little bit longer than my layouts normally do because, like I said, I was fussing around with it quite a lot. I've got some clear stickers here that I'm going to add, mostly just the smaller pieces from, I think I grabbed some stars or hearts or something like that, maybe some plus signs, and added those around the page in my little clusters. And I'm just trying to bring in those tiny elements that coordinate well with these papers. I didn't have a ton of the Well Hello collection. I think I had maybe 5 or 6 papers and the sticker sheet, and that's all I had. So I wanted to make sure that I was using as many of the embellishments that I had that coordinated with that side of it on the layouts that were heavily using those colors. I hope that made sense. I wanted to make sure they got used. I will say though that this layout didn't feel complete until I got through the splattering. And sometimes I add splattering just because I want it. It looks nice. It's fine. It just adds a little something. But for me, it just didn't feel cohesive until I added the splattering. And you will see that at the very end, and I think you'll agree with me. Now, I've got these beautiful thickers that are very bold and they're very black. And there is some black. The leaves on the florals in the back are black. And so I thought I could pull off this very dark black thicker. And I'm only putting one word in this part of the title. And so I thought I could get away with it. And I think it does add a nice bold contrast, but it also kind of calls for me to add a little bit more touches of black around the page. Because it is such a bold contrast, it needs to be brought into the layout and not just added on top of it. And while Vote is the main title for this layout, I did want to, again, bring in some of that orange. And I knew it was going to be tricky to do that, but I also knew that I had these really cute tile letters that had come in the kit, that some of these embellishments had come in that were based on a similar collection. It wasn't this one, I don't think, but it was a similar one. And it had that orange, and I thought, yes, let's do a subtitle with the orange. It'll tie it in a little bit better. And that's when things really started coming together for me. I don't always start with a plan. In this case, I actually had a page kit pulled together of just the papers and that sticker sheet and no idea what I was going to do. But it turned out a lot smoother of a process once I started getting everything onto the page and you start eliminating the spaces that need to be filled. And it's like, okay, now what's left? What do I really need at this point? And when you get down to just those fine details, then you can gain a little bit more confidence and continue to add to the layout without feeling like you have to add a whole lot more design element to the layout. The main design is done. So I'm just going to add in some little bits and pieces. I've got some little, what are they? I've got some little florals that I'm tucking in to the other clusters. And at this point, I kind of realized that I have forgotten something. I have forgotten something that I wanted to put onto every single layout this month. I want to include some wood veneer and cork. So I am going to bring in my bowl of wood veneer and cork in just a moment, and that is going to be a big add to this page because I really do want them to have a presence throughout my layouts this month. I have a goal for myself to really work through the bowl that I keep on my desk and use up some of it. Not necessarily all of it, but I do want to use up quite a bit of it. So here's that bowl, and I'm just going to pick out some bits and pieces to add around the page, considered some hearts and some arrows and a couple of other things. We're getting near the end and I am losing track of what I'm talking about. Sorry about that, y'all. I've been really sick this last weekend and it's really catching up with me. I'm glad I was a little ahead last week in videos because, man, there is some crud going around. I hope y'all are not being affected by all of the crud that is going around, but our house has been hit really hard and I'm just now starting to feel human again. And trying to get the brain back into voiceovering has been quite the process today. So I am bringing in one of those potty people that I believe came from Studio Calico, and it's a fairly large one, but I thought it would be interesting to add that on because it's kind of it's a layout that kind of empowers me anyway, to vote and to be heard. And I thought that seems appropriate to put a little woman figure, a little lady power figure on the page. Now I am going to add in some little strips of washi here and there, just trying to create more of a balance between the large cluster that I have to the left of my photo, and I want to have a little bit of balance there because it felt like it was a little heavy on that left side now that I've added all that titling to the bottom. And so I just added a few more banners there to kind of balance that out and sort of lead your eye up to that potty person. And not sure why they're called that, but I assume because they're the symbol on the toilet door, but yeah, I would have picked something else, I think. Using these tiny enamel stars, I believe, around the page as well. I will have those linked for you below. And some of my lovely watercolor splattering. I've been enjoying watercolor splattering. It splatters quite nicely, and if you don't use too much water, it's nice and opaque as well. So a little bit of black splattering that really, for me, brought in just enough black to tie in all of the pieces together. Now, unfortunately, I managed to get it all over my little potty person, and I couldn't get it off. So then I thought, well, maybe I'll just paint her black, and that'll be part of her statement on the page. But then that didn't entirely work because, as you know, watercolor is fairly translucent, and so then I will have to come in and cover her back up with some black Nuvo, which worked a whole lot better. But that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed this video, though tangenty as it was, and yeah, thank you so much for watching. I am having a blast with this kit. It's so bold and colorful, and a complete 180 from last month's kit. Until next time, bye!